What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Welcome into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jabari here with Jared Smith. Jared, how is your Thursday going so far? I know it's bright and early. Well, not really bright and early. It's 10 a.m. But how's your Thursday?
That was last night. Scal coming on, dropping the drum and sprinkles. We hit it 3 different ways in addition to an alternate. Great night in the NBA.
Yeah.
Terrible night in Major League Baseball. So I lost a YRFI I went 1-4 with the baseball picks yesterday, 4-0 with the NBA, all on Drummond, 1-4 with baseball. So we'll give one of these. I lost a YRFI on a triple play. Did you see this triple play last night?
I did see the triple play, Jared.
Are you freaking kidding me? First and second, nobody out. I'm like, and by the way, in the top of the first inning, it was walk, double play, single. We didn't score a run. And I'm like, all right, well, this is bad luck. Then in the bottom of the first inning, I didn't think the luck could get any worse in this game after a walk, then a double play, and then back-to-back hits. I was like, all right, first and second, nobody out. We're good. We're going to run here. A little bunt, maybe a ground ball to the right side, then a sac fly when we're home free. And the dude, Jesse Winker, hits into a freaking triple play. He got like one of those a season. And it was on my YRFI last night. So we went 0-for with YRFIs. 1-1 with K-Prop, split the pair. Severino, what the heck, man? 3 strikeouts in 5 innings against your Tigers? They were like contact Tigers last night.
I know.
So hopefully we have a better day in MLB. Big MLB card today. That's
big
really all.
MLB card. Big MLB card. Also, before we get into our Better Up segment with MLB, I want to talk a little bit about Deebo Samuel. Obviously, yesterday we saw that he's requesting for a trade. I think he wants to be paid like a guy like Tyreek Hill. But for him, he's a better player when he's both a wide receiver and a running back. I know players have a shorter shelf life when it comes to being a running back too, because they're taking more hits. But your thoughts on this, and how does this kind of impact the betting world in terms of the draft being next week, et cetera?
Huge implications if he gets moved before the draft. I don't think he will. And the Giants, San Francisco Giants.
Wrong sport. We're getting there.
Baseball mode. The 49ers have expressed their disinterest in trading him post. I mean, what else are they going to say? Like, you don't, immediately come out and say, yeah, we're going to trade him the day after he requests a trade. I'm assuming the rhetoric will be detente from San Francisco, and Deebo will want to raise the level of, questions and just, doubting the team. And that's posturing with both sides of the agents and the team representatives kind of going back and forth publicly. We've seen these things play out in very messy ways publicly with other players, taking their team names off the Instagram profiles, untagging the team.
That's a quick subtweet to Kyrie. Or not Kyrie, Kyler.
Yeah, Kyler Murray.
Jeez.
Well,
basketball mode. We are just all over the place.
I understand why you're in NBA mode. Like, you've been flying around all season with these teams. But so the thing with Deebo that's just so fascinating is the Niners really can't afford to lose him.
Yeah.
Because think about their quarterback situation. If you think it's going to be Trey Lance, I think the Niners hope it's going to be Trey Lance. But he's their best weapon. It's a tough sell to trade away your best receiver. I do think it'll impact the draft. If a first round or a team that is targeting a wide receiver in the first round, and there are many of them, Packers and Chiefs both have 2 first-round picks and both just got rid of their top receiver. Let's say one of those teams trades for Deebo on draft night. Well, you would think it might impact the wide receivers taken in the first round. I don't think he'll get traded. Just my gut instinct reaction to it. But it definitely could have some ripple down effects with the markets that we discuss on a daily basis here on the show.
It is going to be really interesting to see how that goes moving forward. Obviously, we have the draft next week. We're going to be hitting that hard on Tuesday and Wednesday, so make sure to tune in for those shows. That's going to be interesting. But let's get into our Better Up segment. Let's head to the Diamond, the baseball park. The park, if you will. YRFIs and NRFIs. Obviously, Jared, we were talking yesterday about your bad beat. I feel like you need to text that into Scott Van.
That was really bad.
like literally have that in bad beats because that sucks. That really sucks.
That was probably the worst. So we deserve one today. And surprise, surprise, I'm going
the
right.
Baseball gods, Jared, are going to have your back.
The YRFI gods, please, oh mighty, powerful YRFI gods, please.
What is that accent that you just started talking?
I don't know. This is so little side personal news. This is my last show until next Tuesday.
Crazy.
So yeah, I'm probably going to take a break from betting baseball this weekend too.
Ooh.
So I'll be at a bachelor party in Scottsdale. I fly out tomorrow. So sobriety and Wi-Fi will likely be at a premium. And then I drive to Vegas on Monday, and in the draft next week, I'll be hanging out in Vegas doing some fun stuff for the draft next week, and then I'll be back on the show Tuesday. So not a whole lot of YRFI nerfy action this weekend. So get it in now, because I'm going to be off the reservation until Monday probably.
Yeah, until further notice. Until Tuesday. Yeah. So let's hit the YRFIs and nerfies hard today. So YRFIs, Jared, went 7-9 on Wednesday. So far for the season, YRFIs are 93 and 89. If you bet all YRFIs, you're down 8.92 units. Now, Cleveland is still the only team that has yet to concede a run in the first inning. 15 teams in MLB have a YRFI percentage of over 50 and 4 right at 50%. What are those for, by the way?
It's a good question. Let's check it out right now. San Diego, Kansas City, Chicago Cubs, and LA Dodgers are straight up at the 50% mark. But I do think that's interesting because if you think about what our strategy is, which is plus money YRFIs only, the only time we're talking about this with Jack before the show, the only time I'm going to consider nerfies at this stage of the year, maybe later when we get more data, I'll change my tune.
Yeah.
But right now, the only nerfies that I'm considering betting are Coors Field nerfies because I do think we're getting, a serious plus money price there.
Yeah.
But the reason that I put that stat in the rundown today is because if you follow the strategy of plus money YRFIs only, well, more than half of Major League Baseball is 50% or higher to the YRFI. So, obviously it's a very small sample size. We're only 100 or so games into a 2,400 plus game season, but plus money YRFIs, considering more than half of baseball is over 50% with their YRFI percentage, might be a good strategy for us long term. But again, the data will speak as we go on.
The data speaks for itself. Okay, what YRFIs do you have today? I see 3 of them on the board for you.
Yeah, I think 3 is a healthy number, and I'll try to get there every day. I can't promise.
Very healthy.
It's very healthy. It's like, 1 hamburger, probably not enough. 3, that's probably a pretty good amount.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the afternoon game. And man, oh man. So when I was going through this one today, I'm convinced that the Orioles, they might be the worst offense in baseball. The numbers certainly say that early in the year, but when you look at their lineup, they've got some pretty good hitters at the top. Mountcastle, they've got some guys who can hit, but they're under. I saw this stat this morning. They haven't had an over in a game played yet.
That's crazy, actually.
They're 11-0-1 to the under, the Orioles. That's wild. But my point is, these things have a funny way during a baseball season of balancing out. So I think we'll try it again with the Orioles. We've tried it a couple times with them so far this season. We haven't worked out. But their YRFI number is plus 122, which is that's a crazy plus money price. And usually you get a price like that when you're getting like 2 aces going up against each other. Well, pitching matchup today is Tyler Wells against Paul Blackburn.
Yep.
Like, what? Blackburn has a 5.28 ERA in the first inning. He has a 12.37 FIP against the current Orioles lineup. And Wells is making his 3rd career start. He's got a 6.35 ERA this year.
It ain't good.
No. And again, Baltimore's only scored once in the first inning all year. The A's have only scored 3 times. They're 9-4 to the YRFI because they've conceded 7 times. But again, this is just one of those, the price is at the point with Baltimore that the bottom has dropped out of their totals. And sadly, as stinky as it is, we have to keep betting the yes and the overs if you do bet the totals with the Orioles until they hit because the numbers are going to keep dropping and the value is on the yes and the over. So I'll take a chance. Orioles, A's, YRFI plus 122 over at FanDuel.
I like that. Can I actually talk about that game for a second before we get into other YRFIs? Because I am betting that game, so we're on it. What the heck? Why not? I like the A's money line in this spot at minus 126. I got that on FanDuel. Okay, so I know everyone, well, most people saw the video yesterday of the first pitch at Oakland. Obviously, there was only like 2,000 people at the game yesterday, which is really sad. But part of the reason is because they changed the game within 24 hours, the start time from like a night game to a 3 p.m. game to avoid a rain out. So context is important there, but also attendance numbers definitely down. It was like actually crazy to see. Did you see the video, Jared?
I watched the early stages of the game. Because I've been watching these Orioles games pretty closely now that we're betting on them a lot more.
Yeah.
I thought it was like still pregame when the game
it's crazy. It was crazy. There's literally nobody there.
Yeah, like when you watch the pregame shows of the regional sports networks,
yeah.
they show cutouts of the stadium as the game's about to start. And I'm like, oh, it's a pregame show. This game's not starting for an hour. And then players are on the field.
Just kidding. This is first pitch. Okay, well, sounds good. But yeah, I do like the A's in this spot. A lot of the reasons why you were talking about Paul Blackburn on the mound. He's 1-0 so far in the season, 1.80 ERA, and a 1.89 expected FIP in 2 starts so far on the year. And Tyler Wells is on the other side. He's 0-1 so far on the season. Like you were saying, 6.35 ERA. Not the best starter, to be honest with you. And he's lost his only 2 games as a starter so far in his career. Now, the A's are 3-1 in Blackburn's last 4 starts. I know the Orioles stole yesterday, but before that, Oakland was 4-0 in their last 4 games against a right-handed starter. And I just like them again to get this game. I'm not using home field advantage for this one because obviously it didn't really make a difference with only 2,000 people there in the stands. I'm sure the wave isn't looking too wavy if the fans are doing the wave there in a park like that. But I do like the A's because of the pitching situation. A's money line at minus 126. You have a total on this one too, yeah?
No, nothing more on Orioles A's, just the YRFI.
Okay.
The other YRFIs that I'm on today, I'm taking another crack at Cards Marlins. Listen, the Cardinals are one of the best offenses in the first inning so far this year. They're 7-3 to the YRFI, up over 5 units. They've scored in half of their games in the first inning. 5 out of 10. So anytime we get a plus money price on the Cardinals, they're going to likely fire unless it's like an extreme scenario with weather or starting pitchers.
Yeah.
I don't see it here with Pablo Lopez, who has been kind of this year. Not great against the Cardinals lineup either. So I think this is a decent, coin flip price. The Marlins offense hasn't been great, but Pablo Lopez has got a 507 FIP in a short sample size, 37 plate appearances against the current Cardinals offense. And Jordan Hicks, so that's the starter for St. Louis today. Very interesting with him, 114 appearances as a reliever. So I have no data on him in the first inning because he's never pitched in the first inning before. So fascinating to see how he starts the game. And I could see, again, this is the evening game. St. Louis's offense this is an under game yesterday. I think it was 2-0. So the Marlins being shut out yesterday, I could see the Marlins wanting to come out fresh. And then the other one, Rangers Mariners. This was the worst beat probably in my baseball season, but we're going back to it last night.
Why not?
They're combined 16-7 of the YRFI, up over 8 units, almost 8 units on the year. And it's Taylor Hearn, who is just an awful starting pitcher for the Rangers. He's got an 8.56 ERA in the first against Marco Gonzalez, 3.68. Both pitchers are unders in K-props. I didn't bet them, but I might fire on Gonzalez. Hearn, I didn't see a number available. So the YRFIs are on today. Cards Marlins, plus 115. Rangers Mariners, plus 105. Orioles A's, hold your nose with that one, plus 122.
I like it. And I know you have a few more bets for the MLB card today, and so do I. But Jonathan Von Tobel's here. So let's talk a little NBA, and then we'll go back to the rest of our baseball bets. JVT, let's bring him in. Obviously, we are in NBA postseason at this point. Round 1, A lot of really exciting games tonight. 3 big games yesterday. JVT, how are you today, first of all?
I'm good. And I enjoy the baseball talk. And Jared, I think in that Oakland and Baltimore game, you don't have to worry about crowd noise or anything like that.
That's what I was saying.
Crowd noise. There's no outside distractions.
How
Are you
crazy was that?
Too, is that your vibe too, other than NBA? You like
Yeah. Yeah. I like baseball betting. I'm more of I like to use like larger sample sizes. I like to use those deltas between like ERA and FIP to find some value for guys and everything like that. So I tend to wait a little bit later into the season, like 2 months in, to get larger sample sizes. But yes, I'm a baseball guy. I'm a big Angels fan. So
you got the red on today. Good game for you last night.
I like it.
Oh yeah, I had texts like, "Hey, Shohei, he's got a perfect game going through 4," and I was like, "All right, like let's get this
all calm down
past the
for a
5 innings, before we get excited." But no, they look pretty good so far, so I'm excited.
That's great. NBA, obviously a lot going on right now. The Sixers took a stronghold over the Raptors yesterday. Now 3-0 in the series. What are you expecting the Raptors to get swept at this point, or do you think they'll snag one?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a gentleman's sweep at this point, right? I mean, potentially, because they were very competitive in that game. And I mean, lest we forget, they lost that game, I think, as opposed to Philly winning that. When you're talking about Precious Achiuwa missing the 2 free throws at the end of regulation, the missed free throws near the end of that overtime period as well. They shot themselves in the foot consistently yesterday. So I think there's a pretty good effort from them, right? In game 4, you win one, you bring it back to Philly. Philly, opens the door for them. Like, sure, take one, guys, and then you go back. So yesterday was really, really big because if you win that game, then you're like, hey, we're down 2-1. We have one more home game, and maybe Scotty Barnes is coming back sometime soon. But losing that game is pretty brutal for them. So, yeah, it's probably a gentleman's sweep ended back in Philly, I would say.
Yeah, I think when you look at the games last night, man, some of these rosters, like Toronto, I don't even know what to make of like what the Raptors are going to do with their roster down the stretch. And then you get the games tonight. The Mavericks, like, what are we going to get Luka back at some point in this series? Like, how do you cap that series now that the Mavs stole, I don't want to say stole one, but they were 6-point dogs in that game. And they won outright. And then, the Nuggets as a home dog tonight, getting no action. Like, nobody thinks the Nuggets can win.
No one thinks.
Nobody thinks the Timberwolves can beat the Grizzlies at home tonight. And we talked about those splits, the first quarter, full game, the teams down 2-0, coming back, not quite that scenario with T-Wolves, Grizzlies. But when you look forward tonight, you're getting some home dog opportunities, which in the playoffs, JVT, that stands out to me right away. But are any of these home dogs worth biting on?
See, I would say, too, when you're talking about, like, let's focus on Denver for a second really quickly. The problem because I know a lot of people are going to go that first quarter, first half route, and I brought this up to you guys last time. Take Denver, for example. They are catching about 2 points in this game. For the game, they're laying 1.5 in the first quarter. Like, you're getting, in terms of betting value, you're getting nothing. And yesterday, for example, too, right, Toronto came home. Like, they got off to a really good start. They were up. And they covered those. But when just because it covers, right, doesn't mean it's a good bet. Exactly. You're not getting any value in situations like that. So I would always say, I think I brought it up to you guys last time. You were 6-9-1 against the spread last year if you went first quarter, first half with these teams down 2-0 in the postseason. So now you're 8-9-1 if you factor in what just happened yesterday with the Toronto Raptors. But you're not getting anything with the number. So I would steer away from those angles. And I think when you're talking about the underdogs for today, specifically the home underdogs, there's a better case to be made for Minnesota potentially here because of how poor they were offensively in game 2. But my problem with Minnesota, after I watched that second game, and I wrote about this today, if you look at the way that game transpired, it was eerily similar to their last 9 games of the regular season. So if you look at their last 9 games of the regular season for Minnesota, 121.6 points per 100 possessions in non-garbage time minutes, 103.5 points per 100 plays in half-court settings, and 75.8% at the rim. And what did the the Memphis Grizzlies do? Offensive rating of 119. They shot 75% at the rim. They had trouble with their small ball lineup. It's just like everything that Minnesota has problems with that transpired in game 2. So I think you're just hoping for a better effort offensively from Minnesota. That would lead to a higher scoring game. And I think that's the focus there. As far as the Nuggets are concerned, I am one of those who do not believe that there's much hope for them at this point. How about this? That small ball lineup that everybody's talking about, a plus, let me get this right. It's a very big number. A plus 129.3 net rating in 11 minutes on the floor. against the Denver Nuggets. They just they don't have an answer for it. And that's one of those where it just seems like a matchup problem for Denver. There's nothing that's going to get fixed unless Aaron Gordon, who's averaging 7.5 points in this series and shooting 31% from the floor, is going to all of a sudden explode. Or Monty Morris is going to get more aggressive. You just can't really find your way toward a path there, I think, for Denver for covering this game tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I want to talk about the Mavs for a second. Obviously, we're not sure about Luka at this point, but do they have a chance to make it out of the series without Luka, but if he comes back, even more importantly, with Luka?
Oh, I think they do. And the problem is it's all based on Utah. Look at the things that have bothered Utah over the last couple of seasons. You go back to last year, right, when they lost that series to the Clippers, who didn't have Kawhi Leonard for the majority of that series. The Clippers in that series averaged 23 catch and shoot 3-point attempts, and they shot 47.8% on those because what was happening was they were going smaller. They were just doing dribble penetration, kicking it out to open shooters, and they were killing Utah with that. And what happens in game 2? The Dallas Mavericks come in, they take 30 catch and shoot 3-point attempts. They shoot over 50% on those attempts, and they end up winning that game all because of dribble penetration and the inability to contain guys like a Jalen Brunson. And we have all these conversations about Rudy Gobert being an overrated defensive player of the year, when reality is those perimeter defenders, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, are just getting blown by, and Rudy Gobert has to put out all these fires, and all of a sudden guys are in the corner wide open and shooting threes. And this has been a problem for Utah for so long that you can totally see a situation where without Luka Doncic for a vast majority of the series still going in Dallas's fashion because they're just winning the math game at this point. They're shooting more threes and they're getting wide open catch and shoot attempts.
I don't see a scenario where the Warriors lose tonight, but everyone's on them. And that just, I mean, I'm seeing at MGM 90% of the bets on Golden State tonight, 82% of the bets on the Grizzlies. The Mavs-Jazz game is actually relatively split. That might be the only game that offers a little bit of betting value if you want to take the Mavericks, I think. But, man, JVT, it is tough to navigate these postseason waters when you're seeing 80, 90% of the handle on one side. It's the obvious choice. But the contrarian in me just can't bring myself to the window. When you see the splits that sharp towards one side, do you look to the half? Do you look to props? Like how do you approach a game like I think Golden State Denver is the perfect example tonight. Yeah. It's an obvious handicap. Golden State's better, period, end of story. But it's tough for me to get to the window when I'm seeing 9 out of 10 people are betting the Warriors.
So I understand it, and I think because I am not blind to maybe some of my weaknesses. I think one of my weaknesses as a handicapper is I rely way too much on numbers at times, and so maybe that puts me in situations where I don't factor in a situation in a game or something like that. And I think maybe one of my other is I tend to not really care about betting splits as much, like unless you're not getting the value there, right? When we're talking about first quarter, first half, those being wildly popular bets, and those are going to be skewed in terms of handle and tickets. For me, it's I do my handicap. I have my numbers. I know where I want to bet. And so that's how I kind of handle it going forward. And look, I mean, you go back to game 2 for that Memphis game. I think Bet Rivers reported five to six figure bets on the Memphis Grizzlies in terms of like money line and spread and all those things. And that got home. They blew them out. So it's not all the time where, you get that lopsided action and it doesn't come home. And I just think from a matchup perspective, as you said it's not so much you can't foresee a situation, but you're looking at a Golden State team that has a massive advantage that at any point Steve Kerr can go, all right, I could put 5 guys out here who in the first 11 minutes that they have played together over the course of 100 possessions have outscored this team by 129.3 points. Yeah. That's just a lopsided mismatch to me. And I'm comfortable at least laying under 2 points in that situation with Golden State because it's so lopsided.
I totally agree with you on that one. I want to talk about some of the games from last night, too. The Celtics obviously taking on the Nets. The Celtics are the better team. Sorry, Kyrie. Sorry, KD. But right now, the Celtics are looking like the better team. They're now up 2-0 in the series. Just your thoughts on that series and who makes it out there.
Yeah, it's looking like it. And I think it's also kind of looking like Kevin Durant is wearing down here a little bit. And this was one of the things that I was curious about coming into this series. We saw the footage of Kyrie Irving, right, breaking his fast in the middle of the game, having to go and get fruit. These guys are playing 42 minutes a game, or they needed to play 42, 43 to get past the Cleveland Cavaliers in that play-in game. And now here we go again yesterday. Kevin Durant has to play 42 minutes. At one point, I think he missed 10 consecutive shots in the second half. He's just getting worn down with this workload, and their offense has stagnated to your turn, my turn. Give it to Kevin Durant and try to get to the elbow area that he's really comfortable with and shoot a mid-range jumper. Give it to Kyrie and see if he can do something on his own. There's not much movement off ball. It's just really stagnant. And when you have a team like Boston, who's got a bunch of adequate 6'7" wings who can switch whatever they want and defend extremely well, who can match up somewhat in terms of strength with Kevin Durant, and they give away a few inches, but that's fine. I just think you're kind of seeing that difference at this point right now. Yeah, I was on Boston before the series, but I expected like 7 games and, tight series back and forth. Not to say that they're going to sweep Brooklyn, but you're definitely seeing the mismatches here, and you wonder if Steve Nash is going to make an adjustment to make up for some of the size, go a little bit deeper with some of these guys on the bench. But right now, you're right. Like Boston, obviously they have the 2-0 series lead, but they have the schematic advantage at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that game the other night kind of jolted them? We were on the T-Wolves. I thought that the T-Wolves, the number was certainly favorable considering where some of the projections were, and Memphis just blitzed them. And that second half for Minnesota was really rough. Do you think that was situational? Hey, we already took the first game. We're going to go back home, split. We're fine with that. And do you think we'll get a better effort tonight? Because the effort for Minnesota in the second half of that game against Memphis was not what we saw in the play-in round and in game 1. And that effort is the most important thing in the NBA, right?
Yeah, and it was one of those weird Karl Anthony Towns games too, right? Where I think he had 5 fouls in the game, looked really frustrated throughout of it. It was like that Clippers game actually, where he ran the play, where you were wondering what the hell he was doing for most of the time. And I would agree that you're going to get a better effort from Minnesota. But what kind of bothers me, and I was on with you guys and told you that at least from a game-to-game basis, I was high on the Timberwolves. But what bothered me was, so Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, I don't want to say stumbled into it, but Steven Adams is not a very good matchup for Karl Anthony Towns. And so in game 2, in the first 3 minutes, he gets 2 fouls, looks lost. Jenkins benches him for the rest of the game, and they go small. And Jaren Jackson's playing center, and they're running up and down the floor, and that really bothered Minnesota. Like very much, that small ball lineup. And even in the minutes where Jackson was off the floor and they went even smaller, that's when they went on these big runs, the 20-6 run in the third quarter, the inability to stop them in the second. Like that's kind of what bothers me about Minnesota here is you could get a better effort, and your offense could probably be much better, especially against a smaller lineup. You should mismatch much more with Karl Anthony Towns. You should be able to find a size advantage with Anthony Edwards against smaller lineups too. But when you can't stop that team in the half court where they're just getting dribble penetration and kicking it out and constantly having these guys with the ability to attack off the bounce, that's what bothered me more about Minnesota. The effort could be there, but are you going to be much better defensively? Because unlike Memphis, you don't have a guy that you can bench and then go to and switch lineups and all of that stuff. I mean, you can get Vanderbilt off the floor and switch up things that way, but that's what kind of worries me with Minnesota is that for them to get better win this series, their offense just kind of has to match the output of the opposition as opposed to them changing something schematically defensively.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. Okay, we're doing a game, JVT, called Red Hot Chili Proppers. I'm going to give you some props, and you tell me where you would lean over or under for tonight. It could be like a 15, 20-second answer. And just side note, not necessarily things that you're betting, but just how you would lean in these situations. Red Hot Chili Proppers, baby. Let's go. Okay, Kat, Karl Anthony Towns, over or under 25.5 points?
I would lean under, and because I think Jaren Jackson defensively, if he gets in foul trouble, it's going to be a problem. But I think Jaren Jackson's a much better matchup for him, and you're going to see Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell have better offensive outputs tonight. So I'll go under with Karl Anthony Towns.
Jared, your thoughts?
Yeah, he's been. I think it's a mental thing with him too. I think the foul trouble has seeped into his brain, and he has not been the strongest mental player over the year. Like he's kind of had moments where he's broken down. So I would be under on him for the rest of the series, actually. I
know. Speaking of Jaren Jackson, over under JVT 6.5 rebounds for JJ.
So he got 7 in game 2, and that's when he played a majority of his minutes at center. So I think I would partially lean over, but I love Jaren Jackson Jr. Actually, I had a ticket on him for Defensive Player of the Year 301. I was all about JJJ this season, but the thing that held him back from winning Defensive Player of the Year was the foul trouble. And even in the last game, he had 4 fouls, if I remember correctly. He'll spend long stretches on the bench because of that foul trouble. So he's going to be starting center. He'll get the opportunity, but I'm going to lean under because of his penchant for fouls.
Yeah, I agree. Most props go under I mean, I know we like to bet overs, but for the most part, the props are more profitable to the under. I feel like this is going to be a really up and down game. It's the highest total on the board today. No surprise because these teams love to run. And I don't see – I mean, he's only gone over that – he's gone over it 3 times in his last 5, but 1 out of 2 in the postseason game so far. So I'll lean to the under there as well.
Let's look at Andrew Wiggins for a second. Over under 15.5 points for Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, this one's tough. So he had 13, I think, in game 1 and 16 in game 2, or that might have flopped to either one. So I'm going to tend to kind of be boring here and lean a little bit under. I think his role in that small ball lineup is more about his switchability and his ability to defend and, throw him on anybody and when you're switching those matchups. But at the same time, in those small ball lineups, Poole, Thompson, and Curry are getting most of the attention, which means he's going to have an opportunity to hit some threes. I think I'd probably look more like over 3.5 points, like 3.5 pointers made as opposed to points for Andrew Wiggins. So I'll lean under on the points.
Yeah, what was it, 15.5? Is that what the number was?
15.5, yes.
Yeah, he split the pair, 1 out of 2. He went barely over in game 1, and then under in game 2. His minutes went up, though, which is intriguing to me. And he took less shots, more minutes, less shots in game 2. Granted, the game was a blowout at the end, so, tough to maybe draw too much conclusion from that. But again, unders have kind of been where a lot of these props land. And if it's not a matchup that I think is a plus matchup, which it's not, he's not the number 1, number 2, number 3 scoring option on the Warriors team. So it's tough for me to back and over in that spot.
You talked about the 3.5 made threes. What about Klay Thompson over under 3.5 made threes, JVT?
Man, that might not seem like a big number, but it is. In game 1, he hit 5. And they were really rolling. But last game, he went 3 of 10, so he only hit 3 of them. And that was one where they were running up and down the floor, absolutely destroying him in that small ball lineup. 3 is probably right where it should be. So I'm going to lean under here. And especially, too, when you're talking about if these games play out the way we have seen them and you get more early minutes from Steph Curry, then you're talking about the potential that this game kind of gets out of hand and you're seeing more minutes for Klay on the bench because they don't really need to play him. I'm going to lean under there. 3.5 is a pretty big number. And I'm assuming you're probably going to bet that over. You're probably paying a small price for it, too.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because those 3-point props can be extremely volatile with the odds on one side or the other. I don't know if we can pull that up. I'm getting to it right now, but it'll take me a second. I would lean to the over just based off of attempts. I mean, I'm looking at his
over is minus 122, under is minus 104.
That's not bad actually to the over. I mean, this is a guy that he had so before the last game, he was 3 of 8. Prior to that, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive games dating back to the regular season with double-digit attempts from 3. He's going to take 10 threes. 3 out of 10, you would think, is a fair number, or as a coin flip. We have to get 3.5. I would probably lean to the under, but the price, I don't know, that price laying just 20 cents or so seems relatively fair because, again, he is like a 40-ish, 35, 40% three-point shooter. So if he takes 10, it's a coin flip, I think, for him to get to 4. 3 or 4 is kind of where you project. So if you get even odds on over 3.5, I would fire. Anything laying, I probably would stay away, but I don't think I would. Let's just leave it at this. I wouldn't bet an under on Klay. That's a sticky 48 minutes you're kind of sitting through there.
And I mean it's like betting an under in an NBA game. I had under Philly and Toronto in game 2, and like, good Lord, you're just sitting there with every attempt, like, oh, come on.
Exactly.
And with Klay Thompson,
I think he's going to take 10. So that means you have to hope it goes under his season average, which
you'd have the under sweats if you're betting the under on that one, right? JVT, before we let you go, just your official bets that you have for the 3 games tonight and how you kind of see those playing out.
So I did bet the Warriors minus the 1.5 on the road against the Denver Nuggets, as we spoke about. There's one other, to add to the red hot chili poppers, if I could.
Please do.
An interesting angle for me in this Warrior series and going back to the regular season has been, Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon through the first 2 games, 7 and 8 points respectfully, under 32% shooting from the floor. In the regular season against Golden State, he averaged 9 points on 34% shooting from the floor. And in these lineups where Looney's out there, Draymond Green is on him. He hasn't been a really big offensive threat. but they're still hanging his point totals at 15.5, 14.5, somewhere in that range. To me, it's just there has to be some sort of an adjustment there on the point total for Aaron Gordon. So if you're still getting like that 15.5, I checked this morning. I think there's a couple spots still in the range of 15.5. I think that's definitely worth looking under for Aaron Gordon, because in now 6 games, if you include the regular season, he has not sniffed that point total against the Golden State Warriors. That's
a great look. And I'll be honest, when we talked to Scal last night, Andre Drummond being the guy that he was targeting to be kind of the mismatch, the mismatch sock, the black sock in the sea of white ones. I do get that vibe when I watch Aaron Gordon play, because the way that this Denver offense moves, it all flows through Jokic, and he's not a spot up shooter. He's not a guy that's going to catch and shoot. So what is his value in a high pick and roll offense that Denver runs with Jokic? It's weird. It's like it was a weird signing to begin with. And you're right, 8 and 7 in the playoffs, and bad matchup with that small Golden State lineup, right?
Yeah, he's got more value. Like when they were all together last year, when it was Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic on the floor together, all of a sudden he's your fourth option, right? And when guys are sagging off of him because they got a shade to Murray, they got a shade to Porter, all of a sudden the floor opens up and you can cut to the basket and you have an elite passer like Jokic.
Better with Murray.
Right, exactly. But now he's like the second option almost, outside of Will Barton, and the spacing's just not there for him to find those little lanes to cut to the basket. And it doesn't help when they're playing big Golden State. You have the best defensive player in the NBA potentially in Draymond Green that's hounding him most of the time.
JVT, I do too. I really do. JVT, we so appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll be talking to you down the stretch with all the postseason action going on. So thanks so much for taking time to come on with us today.
Always fun to come on, guys. Thank you.
Great job, bud.
Jonathan Von Tobel, senior NBA analyst for VSiN. Love having him on. Okay, let's go back to baseball for a second, because you have a few more bets. I have one more bet. So you talked about your YRFIs. Go over them again just quickly.
Man, I'll tell you what. Aaron Gordon under.
Back to Aaron Gordon.
No, so I don't like to take my attention too far off of the show, but there will be a tweet fired off at some point this afternoon with my official Aaron Gordon plays, because again, unders props. If you find the right matchup, the playoffs become easy to bet. If you can hit the right chords and string the right notes together. Last night, Drummond, there was not one moment in that game where I thought Drummond was going over the number.
It's true.
And I think if you find the right matchups and the guys get isolated in certain spots, the playoffs can be a very easy bet, because these numbers are based off of what they did in the regular season. But the rotations tighten up and things change dramatically. Away from something. If it's not working, it's a sense of urgency. And man, that was a great note by JVT. That's why we bring him on. Great stuff with Aaron Gordon. Okay, back to baseball. I promise my attention's not completely split.
He was Aaron Gordon.
Man, I got Aaron Gordon on the brain. Cards, Marlins, YRFI plus 115. Rangers, Mariners, YRFI plus 105. Orioles, A's, YRFI plus 122. Getting a lot of pushback in the chat about these, about YRFIs in general, that they're not great bets. Don't bet them. This is the strategy that I'm going to use with these. I'm going to bet plus money YRFIs until I feel that the data presents anything else. Right now, as I said, more than half of Major League Baseball teams are over 50% with their YRFIs this year. That makes me feel good about betting plus money YRFIs every day. Because I feel like I've got a coin flips chance and I'm getting better than coin flip odds. That's the strategy, guys. There's not a lot of handicapping that goes on here. Sure, first inning ERAs matter, but these are random. I got screwed on a triple play last night. Good luck capping that. You
can't control some of these things, but we're giving you all the stats that we can to show you where we think the trends are going to follow. Okay, what other bets do you have for today, Jared? Go over your card.
All right, Zach Greinke. Actually, I'll save Zach Greinke. We'll save Zach Greinke for POD. Okay. 2 bets that I haven't talked about at all yet this season that will become a part of the equation once we get more data and once things settle in a little bit more. But I'm taking my talents to a first 3 today. I bet first 3 totals a decent amount last year. I think I bet about 20 or 25 of them, maybe like one a week. I see this spot today that I really like with the Jays and the Red Sox. 2.5 is kind of the flat number that we usually get. And then the juice kind of dictates, just like the NRFI YRFIs. It's always a half. and the juice kind of dictates what side of the aisle that I'm on here. I wanted to bet Kevin Gossman's K prop because he has been fantastic, but it's a little too rich for me at 6.5. This is kind of a derivative of a K prop. If a guy can get through 3 innings relatively unscathed, odds are his K prop has a decent chance to hit. And I'm going under 2.5 in the first 3 between the Jays and the Red Sox. I got this at -105 at Caesars. I saw plus 100 even odds at FanDuel for a minute, and then it went back down to like -108. So there's a little bit of bouncing around with these numbers today. But Gossman leads Major League Baseball in a very interesting category, swing percentage, which is what basically the analytics nerds use to calculate how many swings you get on pitches outside the zone. Swing percentage. Makes sense, right? 58.3%. And to put that in perspective, the Major League average is about 30.
Oh, wow.
He is getting a ton of swings at pitches outside the zone, which is usually an indicator of how good your stuff is. In addition, he has the lowest contact percentage of his career so far through 2 starts, 64%. And I think Gossman's a guy that we're going to be betting on a lot this year. I think he's got Cy Young potential if the Blue Jays win the division and he pitches well for the entire season. The reason why he's pitching better this year, he's throwing more sliders, up from 5.6% to 14% of his pitch selection on sliders this year. Added a mile an hour of velo to that slider as well. Fastball percentage down from 52 to 47. So less fastballs, more sliders, getting more swings outside the zone. Tanner Houck is the other pitcher in this matchup. It's Red Sox, Blue Jays. 5 2/3 scoreless against the Twins in his last start, and he's got decent numbers against this Blue Jays lineup. This Blue Jays lineup could wreck this first 3 under in the first inning. They're that good. But I like Houck's, depth with his starts so far this year. Hasn't allowed a home run in 20 plate appearances to the Blue Jays. So again, he's pitched relatively well against Toronto. So under 2.5 first 3 for Jays Red Sox. And then I'm going to take a crack here at a bet that I don't bet a lot, but it stood out to me today at plus money. Teams to score first. Now, this is an interesting bet because it's the Giants-Mets game I'm targeting here. The Giants bat first. So you're getting value to the home team, I think, if that pitcher pitching for the home team is going to have a good start. And I think Carlos Carrasco is that guy. He's been fantastic against the Giants, 091 batting average in his career. And the Mets got shut down by Rodon last night, and they're probably one of the best offenses in baseball. They lead the National League in WRC+. So I could see the Giants going down 1-2-3 in the first. Bang, Mets jump on him first, plus 105. I only bet these at plus money, and I only bet the home team because that's where you get the value because the road team obviously bats first. So Mets to score first, plus 105. Jays, Red Sox under 2.5 first 3. Those are the other 2 baseball bets I'm on, and then we'll get to the K-prop later.
I like it. Okay, I'm on one bet. I'll make it quick. Diamondbacks at Nationals. I'm looking at the over in this one, laying 14 cents for it. So they're wrapping up the series. Zach Davies is going to be on the mound. He's 0-1 so far, 5.79 ERA. Now, the Nationals aren't the most powerful offense, in my opinion, but they do fare well against Davies and some of the numbers that you look at. Josh Rogers is on the mounds right now for the Nats. He's 1-1 with a 3.72 ERA, but his xFIP is 5.08. It's actually worse than Davies, even though his numbers look a little bit better. Now, Arizona isn't a huge offensive powerhouse either, but Rogers isn't going to be pitching at the rate that he has been for his first couple of games. Now, over 5.5 is hit on 5 of Davies' last 6 starts. And it's also hit in his last start against the Nats. And it's hit in 4 of Rogers' last 6 starts. So also gone over in Washington's last 6 against a right-handed pitcher, 5-0-1. So I think there's some good value here if both of the offenses get going. I know they're not necessarily the most powerful offenses, but pitching-wise, I really like this matchup to go over 8.5. And it's not too bad of a price at -114 to lock that in, 8.5. It's now moved to 9. I would still bet that. But yeah, it's gone over in quite a few games of their last games that they have played. Let's move on to NHL quick before we get into our best bets of the day. Do you have any NHL bets today, Gerard?
It's a new one.
Yeah.
I am passing on NHL for the rest of the regular season.
Okay.
Not officially, but most likely. the last week or two of the regular season is just really tough.
Yeah.
So with baseball going on, with the NBA playoffs going on, I feel like my attention is best suited elsewhere. But go on with your fine self and bet that NHL.
There's 11 games on the slate tonight. I like one of them, and I'm betting it 2 different ways. One of them is actually my play of the day, so I'll save that for a little bit. But it's the Bruins taking on the Pens. I like the Pens 3-way money line at plus 125. Now, I know they're trying to rebound from a mini skid. They've gone 3-6-1 in their last 10 games, and the Bruins are really going to want this game too because they're trying to move up from that wild card positioning. For the biggest thing for me for the Pens in this spot is that they're missing 2 great players. Evgeny Malkin, obviously, he has that suspension after cross-checking a guy in the face. And Tristan Jarry, that's a big one for me. He has a foot fracture. But for me, you look at the Pens and the Bruins and the trends that have kind of been following their series. They've been exchanging wins and losses every single time they've played each other. And that's happened the last 8 times. They've swapped back and forth. The last game the Bruins won. I'm leaning the Pens here in this spot as well. 3-way money line. They're going to get it done in regulation. They're playing on home ice. They need this game. They want to bounce back. I know they're missing Tristan Jarry and Evgeny Malkin, but at the same time, I think they have enough firepower, the players that they do have, to be able to get this done. And defensively, they've been really solid all season. So leaning Pens 3-way money line plus 125. Lock it in. Let's get into our best bets of the day, though, and our play of the day, because I also want to talk about the best bet that I have for this game. Play of the day, though, Jared. Go to Pickswise.com. Who do we got for our 3-star plays of the days today?
Mark Zinno, Colonel Mark.
Zinno.
By the way, I learned that a couple days ago that he is actually a colonel, which is awesome. That's a really high ranking for an Army person. So that's really cool. Colonel Mark's got a play for Warriors Nugs. Very excited. I had some chicken nugs last night, some spicy ones from Wendy's, delicious. But the Nuggets are playing tonight, and Colonel Mark's got a play on the total. So go check it out, Pickswise.com.
Pickswise.com.
Oh.
Check out our 3-star play of the day. You love to see it. Okay, I'm going to finish up my bets with the Bruins taking on the Pens. So, yeah, I'm on the Pens 3-way money line at plus 125. My best bet of the day, though, is under 6. I know that total seems low, but let me tell you why. I'm laying about 15 cents for it. Boston offense, they're scoring 3.08 goals per game, but their defense is what's been phenomenal for them this season. They're only allowing 2.67 goals per game, and they've only allowed 3 total goals in their last 2 games combined. Now, Jeremy Swayman, he's having a great season. .916 save percentage at this point, 2.33 goals against average. That's the 5th best goals against average in the entire NHL. Now, the Pens have scored 11 goals in their last 3 games. They're scoring at a 3.26 goals per game rate on the season, but defense is what's been keeping them alive too. 2.70 goals per game. I know Tristan Jarry's out. I do still trust Casey DeSmith. He has a 9.9. Wow. I cannot speak right now, Jared. He has a 907 save percentage, 2.89 goals against average. And the scoring has kind of been an issue for the Bruins over their last few games, especially with the absence of David Pastrnak from their lineup. They've only scored 16 goals total in their last 7 games. That's averaging about 2.29 goals per game. They still have a 3-4 record in that time, where usually if you can't get your offense going, your record's going to look a little bit worse. But they failed to go over their total in their last 6 games. The under hit 4 times. They pushed twice. And the Sunday game where the Pens and the Bruins played each other, it was a 2-1 game. Only 3 total goals were scored. So I think with the absence of Evgeny Malkin for the Pens and the absence of David Pastrnak for the Bruins, it's going to be a low-scoring game. In their last 10 meetings between the two of them too, it's gone under 8 times out of those 10 games. They combined for an average of 4.9 goals per game. So leaning the under in this spot, only laying 15 cents for it, under 6. I probably wouldn't bet it any lower if it moves to 5.5. I don't know if I love that, but I like it at 6 right now, laying 15 cents.
I love it. Listen, you are a rock star with your hockey picks. So fade you at all costs. Let's see if there's any. Let's take a look at that total. There's another 7 on the board tonight between the Red Wings and the Panthers. We talked about those totals earlier in the week. I actually don't remember what the Maple Leafs Flyers game landed. I think it landed on 7, which is kind of funny. But unders have been the popular trendy play with the higher totals. 6 being relatively high. I'm still seeing 6 available, -115 over at MGM. So
Lock it in, baby.
Lock it in. So no pressure on me. Actually, let me check your situation. Yeah, you dropped one last night. You had a nice little 2-3 in a row. No pressure on me here, but I have hit 5 consecutive PODs.
Red hot.
4 of them in the NBA, which if you know me, and I know you do, that's not my cup of tea. But we'll thank Cal for most of those plays. But so the record, by the way, we've been doing this show. Isn't it crazy? It's April. We've been doing this show almost a full year.
Yeah, this is week 33, Jared.
It's a lot. So I'm surprised you're not sick of me yet and you haven't quit.
Oh, I am. I just haven't said anything. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Totally fair. So the record for most consecutive POD victories is 7. So the irony is, if I win tonight, I'm going to be sitting on that for almost a full week till next week.
Yeah.
So I obviously hope I win, but I don't want to. The pressure is mounting. All right.
The pressure's on.
Zach Greinke under 3.5 strikeouts. Now this is a juicy one. I got in at -152. I'll be honest. I would play this up to like -180. He's projected for 2.5. This dude had as many strikeouts as you and I did in 5 1/3 innings against the Tigers in his last start. 0. He pitched 5 1/3 innings against the Tigers, one of the highest strikeout teams in baseball, and had this many strikeouts.
No, that ain't great.
No. Now, the Twins, his opponent today, do have an elevated strikeout rate. So did the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have an elevated walk rate. And with Greinke, he's at the point in his career, he's like 38 years old. He's at the point in his career where he's not going to blow guys away. He's going to have to hit the corners, and he needs teams that are aggressive teams to go after those pitches in order to collect a high number of strikeouts. And the Twins are not one of those teams. They're relatively disciplined, one of the best walk rates in baseball. Again, he's made 2 starts, 5 1/3 and 5 2/3, and he's had 1 strikeout in 2 starts.
That's wild.
If he gets to 4, I tip my cap and I lose, but I do not see him getting to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go Zach Greinke under 3.5 strikeouts. I'm laying 52 cents. Again, it's juicy, I know, but I do not see him getting to 4. So I think it's mispriced at -152.
Who do you think will have more strikeouts today, me or Zach Greinke?
Well, you can't have more than Zach Greinke, but I wouldn't be shocked if you had the same amount of strikeouts because he just – listen, and Severino yesterday too, he had no strikeouts until like the 5th inning, I think, against Detroit. I think he had 1 in the 4th and then 2 in the 5th, and then he was done at 3. I don't understand how a team can go that many innings against the Tigers and not a batter. Zach Greinke not taking out a Tiger that's insane in 5 2/3 innings. So if he gets 4 today, I throw my hands up like the emoji and I lose my streak. But we're going for 6 consecutive pods. Let's do it.
Let's get it. I'm sending you the pod gods through the screen right now, Jared, especially because you're off for the next 5 days. So enjoy your time at
4 days.
the bachelor party. Don't get too
Friday,
crazy.
Saturday,
okay?
Monday, 4 days.
Don't get too crazy. I don't want to hear a hangover story like in the movie when Come Back Tuesday.
I'm not really a hangover guy. I don't drink enough for hangovers. That would be
what they all say.
That's a Lauren Jabara issue.
That's what they all say. That's it for us today, Jared. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter, Jared Smith. I'm Lauren Jabara. Have so much fun this weekend, Jared. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Best of luck tonight for all of you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.